Hello, I'm David Gluckman, the Chairman of the Trustees of the Sanlam Umbrella Fund. Welcome to my third video communication. It's lockdown day 12. I guess we're all getting used to it. The aim of this communication is to unpack some of the key actions and work being done within the 9 committees of the Sanlam Umbrella Fund to mitigate the many new risks we're now facing as a consequence of the coronavirus pandemic. In my second video filmed yesterday, I described the workings of the 9 committees and actually listed them alphabetically. But today I'm going to change tack. I'm going to tackle the 9 committees from where I see, in my subjective opinion, are the highest risk and all the way down to the lowest risk. And there are many risks. And if I had to start anywhere, I'd have to say administration, service delivery and financial distress of our participating employers and our members is right there at the top of the list. So let me start with the administration committee. Last Thursday, we held an emergency 4-hour meeting of the Administration Committee. And actually, for the first time ever in the history of the Sanlam Umbrella Fund, the entire Board of Trustees attended this meeting. That's how serious we take in the issues. So maybe let me just explain some of the issues we're trying to tackle. Maybe starting at a wider context within our administrator. Now, Sanlam Corporate Administration employs about 960 staff. That's including administrators and IT support staff as well. We've had to categorize all those staff of what are essential services and what are not essential services. So essential services would be things like keeping member records, so we are able to pay claims, we're able to help members, paying annuities, paying death claims, etc. So about 500 of the 960 employees are categorized as essential and have to carry on working at this time. Amazingly to me, the essential staff required to actually be in the office as opposed to working from home can now be counted on the fingers of one hand. And in doing so, we are operating at approximately 90% of full capacity on various measures. I'm completely astonished by that because we've moved in a very short time, a couple of weeks, from being almost entirely office-bound staff to virtually everyone now working remotely. So 90% operating capacity seems very good to me under the circumstances. Obviously, a big risk that we face is that key essential administration staff might become sick in the weeks and months to come, and this is something we have to monitor closely, and we support it in our efforts by the wider Sanlam Group and obviously taking all the right medical advice as well. Good news, I would say, is the Sanlam Umbrella Fund seems to be operating much better than the standalone funds that we administer, and the primary reason for this is the much more extensive rollout of electronic administration services that we have been driving over the past decade as a strategy. In fact, even within the Sanlam Umbrella Fund, we can see a clear difference in turnaround times and efficiencies for those clients that are utilizing the available electronic administration services, especially in areas such as benefit payment turnaround times, but many others as well. So I think a key message I'd say is I'd urge our clients to make use of the available online systems. It's going to make your lives a lot easier, particularly at times like this. And very importantly, our Sanlam client relations managers are available, not face-to-face, but remotely by email or telephone to assist our clients if there are any questions in this regard. Now, another key challenge we're facing with this pandemic and the resultant economic fallout is that we are facing many requests to alleviate the burden on financially distressed participating employers and the difficulties that they may now be facing. If they had to pay the full contractual retirement saving contributions and group risk insurance premiums. Now, there are multiple scenarios here, including staff salary reductions, in some cases shortened working hours, benefit reductions, temporary closures and layoffs, downsizing and possible retrenchment of staff, not to mention the possible closure of the entire business in some cases. So what we did as an action is we issued a detailed written communication on 30 March highlighting all the key issues that need to be taken into account in each of these circumstances, and certainly there is the possibility for employers to make application for suspension of contributions in one or other manner. But perhaps the most important thing to remember here is your Sanlam Client Relations Manager is again available to assist you. They've been trained on the various scenarios, and they should be the first point of contact for participating employers and contracted benefit consultants wishing to explore your available options. What I would say is, please do not simply stop paying retirement savings contributions and risk premiums without having first discussed what needs to be done with your Sanlam Client Relations Manager. There could be all sorts of adverse implications with such an approach. In the worst case scenario, leaving your members and their families without valuable group life cover at the time they need it most. We're actually going to be having a webinar on this issue tomorrow by Mark O'Donovan, chairing it, the head of our administration committee. So just look out for that, and also the head of the entire administration business, I should add. A key principle to remember is it's understandable that benefit reductions might be needed in some cases over here, but there will always be a requirement for consultation, or at the very least communication with affected staff before that is done. Now, one related tricky issue we're still grappling with is how best to expedite member payouts in the scenario where a company closes down and retrenches all its staff. The lengthy sub-fund liquidation process, as required by law, is hardly ideal in such circumstances. I think we might have to engage the FSCA here to find more creative solutions. This is an industry problem, much wider than the Sanlam Umbrella Fund. In conclusion, as far as the Administration Committee, maybe I want to make two key points. We have witnessed a very sharp fall in the value of the rand versus major currencies such as the US dollar, UK pound and the euro because of this pandemic. The key issue to note is, from a Sanlam administration perspective, is that all our major retirement fund administration systems are locally sourced and designed and maintained. So we should not experience the same huge increase in cost pressures as will be faced by some of our competitors who use international and imported administration systems. This is certainly good news in terms of limiting likely future fee increases for Sanlam Umbrella Fund members and clients. Another silver lining for the future, not for now, is that we have very quickly found, amazingly quickly, as I said before, ways to work remotely. And I believe we are going to change financial services forever, even after this pandemic is over. If we can save our staff an hour or more in the traffic each day, and we can get clients to use our electronic administration services, thus benefiting from much improved service level efficiencies, we can dramatically further reduce costs to our clients in the future, and there will be other benefits such as the environment benefit, etc. So this is definitely a space to watch. I think the world's going to change forever after this pandemic is over, and maybe in some ways there will be some positives. So let's leave it there for the Administration Committee. The coronavirus pandemic and concerns about the economic consequences thereof has resulted in a very large decline in stock markets in the first quarter of 2020 and in March specifically, both in South Africa and throughout the world. Interest rates have also spiked, resulting in a sharp fall in bond values. We have also witnessed unparalleled volatility in equity prices, the likes of which have not been seen since the Great Depression of 1929. We are in completely uncharted territory. So the consequence is almost all our members would have seen very sharp falls in their member shares during March, except possibly for those members invested in smooth bonus portfolios and cash. Maybe to illustrate this volatility, in my very first video, filmed on 17 of March, I mentioned that the JSE All Share Index had, in a couple of weeks, fallen from 58,000 points to around 40,000 points. But today, as I stand here filming it, or sit here filming it, it's now about 20% higher at around 48,000 points. None of us would ever have witnessed such extreme falls and rises in markets in such a short period. Nonetheless, there is no point crying over spilt milk at this stage, and in managing the risks going forward, we need to consider the future, not the past. So the Investment Committee, and I should actually mention, this is the one committee I actually chair, has identified 5 key risks that we are now managing quite closely. 3 of these risks related to the now underfunded smooth bonus portfolios being: One, well, there are certain issues of equity and fairness whether new money should be invested into what are now underfunded smooth bonus portfolios. The second issue is, given the underfunding, there is always the risk that non-vested bonuses could be reclawed for partially vesting portfolios, such as the Sanlam Stable Bonus Portfolio. I mean, that's never happened since that portfolio was launched in 1986, but it still is a contractual possibility. And then, related to these two issues is the issue of the ongoing life stage switches for our main life stage models into the Sanlam Stable Bonus Portfolio specifically. So the question is, what are we doing about these risks? Because we're also under pressure, because we are also aware that there's been significant market concerns about similar portfolios in the market. For example, Old Mutual's very recent decision to close their portfolios to new business and to launch new series portfolios for new cash flows, and to declare an extraordinary negative 5% bonus declaration for their 50% and 80% partially guaranteed portfolios. I can say we've received a lot of questions whether Sanlam intends to follow suit. Whilst we don't know where this will end and how long or how deep the economic fallout will ultimately be, we are not going to panic and make snap decisions regarding these matters. Our investment committee are working with our investment consultants and with the actuaries in the wider Sanlam group to make the optimal decisions for the benefit of our clients. In the face of this extreme volatility, I have to say all options remain on the table. At this point, I can say our current position is we're not contemplating removing non-vested bonuses on the Sanlam Stable Bonus Portfolio or partially vested portfolios. As I said before, we've never taken this step before. Members will also not receive a negative bonus for April. It might be a zero bonus, but it's not going to be negative. And thirdly, we're not currently looking at or thinking about opening new bonus series pools. It should be remembered, for our main life stage models, members are only invested in smooth bonus portfolios from 6 years before retirement date. And for the vast majority of these members, the ongoing monthly contributions are a very small proportion of their overall investments, which helps alleviate some of the equity concerns. On the issue of monthly life stage switching, what does help us is we only switch very small amounts each month, 2% per month over 50 months, starting 72 months before retirement, ending 23 months before retirement. So we did discuss and consider this matter and took advice from our professional investment consultants, and at this stage we decided not to make any changes in the 1st of April monthly life stage switch run. That doesn't mean that will be the case May or June or into the future. We're going to continue to review market movements, and it is possible we might decide a different approach to life stage switching for the future. We are also monitoring closely any significant Section 14 transfers into these portfolios, as such cases might justify a different approach on a case-by-case basis. So these are being evaluated individually as they arise, and if judged necessary, we will work and support the contracted benefit consultants in each case to propose the best solution depending on how the market conditions are at the time. In summary, our members invested in smooth bonus portfolios continue to benefit from the guarantees underlying these portfolios and would not have seen any reduction in the investment values in these portfolios. The future is always uncertain, but you should know that the investment committee is monitoring, and we're supported by various experts, and we will take the necessary intervention if we believe such necessary intervention is in the best interests of our members. And also, once we take any action, we will communicate such action to all our stakeholders as soon as reasonably possible. So if we have not made any announcements, it implies that no decision to change the current course has yet been made. A fourth risk we are managing quite closely is our worry that many members might switch out of growth portfolios, maybe to say cash, because they're spooked that markets have fallen so much. And the consequence of this is they would permanently lock in losses, and I explained earlier how the market has now rebounded by around 20%. They would not participate in that upside. So what we've done to manage this risk is we've been looking very closely at all the investment switches by members, and for example, we looked at the first 30 days experience in March of all the funds we administer and compared the Sanlam Umbrella Fund to all the other standalone funds we administer. We did this by looking at the switches in 10-day periods. The first 10 days of March, the middle 10 days of March, and the final 10 days of March, or the third 10 days of March to the 30th. What we can see, and we see it both for the Sanlam Umbrella Fund and for all the other retirement funds we administer, is a big spike in member switches in that second 10 days. Remember that the state of disaster was declared on the 15th of March, right in the middle of that period. So that's a worry. But what is a little bit positive and comforting about that analysis, at least for the Sanlam Umbrella Fund, is for days 21 to 30 March. The experience actually went back to more or less what it was in normal in the first 10 days of March. So that, I mean, it is a small sample, but it to me implies that our communication efforts and the support of our contracted benefit consultants is helping. For all the other funds we administer, we saw that the trend from 21 to 30th of March was very similar to what it had been in mid-month, at very high switch rates. A fifth risk we are managing relates to members who lose their jobs. At this difficult time, it's obviously a lot of those members would be looking to cash out their benefits, and again, they face the risk that they could cash out at the wrong time, they don't participate in the market upside. And remember, even a few days out of the market with this type of volatility could mean, it could mean profits, but it could mean big losses as well. So, whilst we appreciate that some members will have no realistic option if they've lost their job from cashing out their retirement benefits, or at least some of their retirement benefits in these situations, what we are doing is we're trying our best to make our exiting members aware of the options that are available within the Sanlam Umbrella Fund, and that do not entail taking any time out of the market risk. So, for example, if you enroll in either our in-fund preservation, our phased retirement, or our in-fund living annuities categories and options, that can greatly assist members protecting against time out of the market risk at such a transition. So our strategy here is to use our retirement benefits counsellors to support members and to support also the contracted benefit consultants, and to make sure all options are explored in each case. Remember, this is a free service. We launched it a few years ago. Members do not have to pay anything for accessing the retirement benefit counsellors and for seeking guidance. Obviously, they won't give financial advice. We are also exploring other ideas to assist members, such as maybe a member webinar on investment issues. So what I'd say is watch this space for further announcements in due course. A silver lining is that the recent sharp interest rate spikes have also meant that conventional guaranteed annuities are now offering much better value than was the case a month or two back. I'll deal with that particular matter now. That potentially helps our members as part of my feedback under the Individual Member Products and Services Committee later. Let's leave it there on investments. The first priority for this committee was to obtain confirmation from our three trustee-approved insurers, being Sanlam, Capital Alliance and ABSA, that all valid death claims arising from the coronavirus pandemic would be honoured and that no special exclusions would be applied. The necessary assurances were obtained and were actually communicated in my first video communication published on 18 March. We then proceeded to an urgent engagement that followed with the main insurers to try and negotiate some better terms and conditions for our clients who might be struggling to pay the ongoing monthly risk premiums. But unfortunately, we were unable to make any real headway here. Firstly, because there are some legal impediments relating to that risk premiums have to be related to the actual actuarial risk, etc. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly, what we realized out of that engagement is the insurers are already worried that they're going to be making massive losses as a result of, underwriting as a result of the pandemic, and they were kind of understandably unwilling to exacerbate these losses. So, whilst we didn't make any headway, I don't regard that as a failure. We tried everything we can to assist our members, and I definitely think that was a worthwhile engagement, and we learned some things and have some ideas from that for the future. I should say, however, that while we note that the insurers are anticipating making large underwriting losses as a result of the pandemic, there doesn't seem to be any cause at this stage to be concerned that the insurers will actually be unable to meet all their financial commitments. The CISA, the industry body, has issued a statement confirming that the insurance companies have more than sufficient reserves to meet the expected increase in claims. And the 30 March Sanlam JSE SENS announcement confirmed also that Sanlam specifically has significant pandemic reserves that can be utilised to settle the expected future increase in group life and funeral claims that we now expect to face. Another action the committee took was that we identified a need to bring in an extra actuarial resource to be able to investigate and consider new ideas to manage the risk pool and to assist the clients at this difficult time. This was motivated to the Board of Trustees, and the appointment of an independent actuary to serve on the committee for 2020 was approved by the Board of Trustees. The extra costs will be funded from the Central Contingency Reserve account with no direct cost impact on our members. So the committee has its first formal meeting. We did have an extraordinary special meeting along the way, but our first formal meeting this Thursday, at which case we'll explore further what plans we can do to mitigate risks here and help our members and clients and employers even more. Now, the vital work of this committee continues. Obviously, we're very worried that we might face a big increase in death claims, and our members and their families will expect these to be paid out as speedily as possible in the circumstances. So what it is, I attended for the first time ever, actually, I've never done it before, for about 1 hour I attended a Death Claims Management Committee meeting last Friday, just to get a feel for the impact of the pandemic and how it's affecting the workings of the committee. Now, the committee members themselves and the trustees who attend that meeting all have Wi-Fi and internet access, so that's not really a problem to work remotely. But actually we had to solve problems like procuring computers and dongles for some of the investigators to enable remote meetings to take place and for them to give all the information. My sense is the meetings operate quite well remotely, but I can see it becomes a bit harder to share some of the details per case arising from each investigation, and this inevitably slows down the number of cases that can be concluded per meeting. So look, it's early days yet, but after speaking to the chairman after the meeting, we feel that that committee is now operating at about 60% of capacity of what it was doing pre-lockdown. And as a result, the committee had to reconvene. I said they met on the Friday, they had to reconvene on Monday and continue to catch up to get to the same stage they would normally be in normal circumstances. Obviously, so far, we would not have seen an increase in the actual number of cases arising from the pandemic, but this is flagged as a possible risk for the future. We also have to experience to what extent the pandemic and lockdown might slow down the necessary investigations and document flow pertaining to 37C investigations in terms of the Pension Fund Act and the requirement to ensure all dependents and nominated beneficiaries are considered. So, in summary, I mean, the committee is working well. The work has slowed down a bit. It's harder to get through everything. It will be a bit more expensive, but the committee can currently meet all its requirements and fulfill its mandate. The Individual Member Products and Servicing Committee is a brand new committee that was only established, and timelessly I would say, at the February 2020 board meeting, and has yet to have its first formal meeting. Its first formal meeting takes place on 15th of April 2020. But already as a result of the pandemic, a huge amount of issues on the agenda for that meeting. I talked earlier under the investment committee on like the risks of members switching at the wrong time and how we're using the retirement benefits councillors to try assist members and to provide guidance and support in these difficult times. So that's something that the work will continue, and we're probably going to put in place even more interventions using those retirement benefits councillors. I definitely think it's a competitive advantage for the Sanlam Umbrella Fund at this stage. I always believe in that more human side of support, as you will see, for example, from this video communication as well. Another area where we've identified that committee will have to look at quite closely is our in-fund living annuitants. Now, depending where they're invested, and quite a few are invested in smooth bonus portfolios that wouldn't have seen any reductions because that is the trustee-approved default investment strategy for these annuitants, but there are others invested in balanced funds who would have seen reductions in values. But actually the good news, what we realize, is the very sharp spike in interest rates mean that guaranteed annuities, conventional annuities, are actually now offering more value than ever before. And for a lot of these members, actually, the benefit they're going to have got in the increased value of conventional annuities might well exceed any losses they incurred in the market. So we've identified maybe there's a need for a special project to approach all those annuitants and just reevaluate if now is the right time for them to think of switching to guaranteed annuities. And again, we'll be using the retirement benefits counsellors, obviously supported by the contracted benefit consultants and advisors, to run with this project. We also are using the counsellors, and I mean, you can see they obviously are essential services the way we're using them, but they are all set up remotely, they're taking calls from home, and they're helping members with a whole range of queries that we now get in. For example, I mean, just to give a few that I see near top of the list, for example, queries about switching portfolios as a result of the rapid decline in markets and what is the best option. That's the most common query. Then there are even queries about, should I now resign from employment, withdraw my money, encash the money, etc. And on the other side of the coin, you might get people who retire in saying, can I afford to retire anymore? Should I postpone my retirement? So we're doing everything we can to support those members. We're also exploring if there are other innovative ways we can help our members, maybe with better communication, maybe member webinars on investment matters as an idea, etc. So there are a few ideas being bounced around, but I'm actually very positive that this new committee is going to add a lot of value to our members in the years to come, and I'm very glad the trustees made the decision to establish it quite recently. Well, I guess you don't have to look any further than this video to get an appreciation for some of the work that the Communication Committee do. And I really like the idea of video communication. I always like that more human type of touch rather than written communication. But obviously, there's a lot of work being done on written communication. So, members will sometimes be getting maybe SMSs. You would have seen the various toolkits that go out every month, or maybe even more regularly at this stage, and other brochures and communication being distributed. As I mentioned, we're also looking at the ideas of webinars, both for participating employers and consultants, and maybe separately for members. The first one that we are actually going to be handling tomorrow, lockdown day 13, is on the subject of helping employers in financial distress. It won't specifically be by the Sanlam Umbrella Fund, it'll be by the wider Sanlam Corporate Administration business, where Marco Donovan heads that business, but given he also chairs our administration committee, I expect the Sanlam Umbrella Fund will be a big part of that discussion. Actually, a quote I read of someone very famous who died, his final words were, "Nothing is as healing as the human touch." So I believe in that. I've talked about our retirement benefits counsellors, but also our client relations managers. Those are vital communication of our communication strategy, and in my view, a key competitive differentiator of the Sanlam Umbrella Fund. Right now, we can't do those things face to face, but email, remotely, maybe video conferencing in some cases, yes, we're all set up to do that. A final call from the Communication Committee is, we repeat again and we reiterate this again and again over the years, but now we see in a crisis how important it is. If our participating employers can give us as many individual member contact details as possible, I'm talking about cell phone numbers, email addresses, etc., we can be communicating much more directly with those members, and we can help those members much more effectively in this difficult time. So, what I'd say is, we'd like to help the members. Please help us to help you. Thank you very much. The mandate of the Governance and Risk Committee is to ensure appropriate governance for the Sanlam Umbrella Fund and the identifications of key risks. Now, the main work is actually done here in normal times, not in crises like this. And we can see that the work that was done in the good times, I think we can see, is now paying dividends. And our committee structure and governance structure is enabling us to make very fast and efficient decisions and prioritization of resources in each of the areas of speciality. But nonetheless, this committee continues to serve a useful purpose to consolidate and summarising the workings of the 9 committees in a similar way that I'm doing here, but reporting more formally to the board, and to keep the board updated on developments in summarised format. The committee also helps keep track in key developments from the regulator, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority's perspective, so that these can be taken into account in our planning. Obviously, a risk we face here is the trustees and the fund officials and the fund secretariat also face the risk of becoming sick, and this is a risk that we have to monitor. Thank goodness we haven't had to face any problems yet, but we're aware there are some key people here and there are some key risks, and we've got to keep on top of them. Maybe you would have picked up from some of the work being done in other committees that it's clear that there are extra costs we're now incurring, and we do anticipate an increase in the cost of funding all the required extra work for managing the pandemic. I mean, the extra meetings, the extra resources being brought in, etc. So what the Governance and Risk Committee is considering is temporary increase in the proportion of bank interest that we earn that gets allocated to the Central Contingency Reserve account to make provision for the suddenly escalated workload at this time. I mean, we're facing huge pressures on various fronts, and that would be an elegant way that we can fund that extra work with no direct cost impact on the members. For completeness, I will talk to the work of this committee, even though there's not much going on right now. Our annual financial statements are due to be submitted to the regulator by 30 June this year, because we've got a 31 December year end. But I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure actually, that our accounting staff who would prepare all those financials would not be designated as essential staff at this time. I do now saw communication that our independent auditors are open and up and running and working, but nonetheless I wouldn't be surprised if there's a delay in preparing those audited financial statements. The good news is the FSCA are aware of this and have already issued a notice that retirement funds in South Africa have got a 3-month extension to submitted financial statements. So I guess that's not our top priority now, but just to let you know where we are with the audit committee. The Complaints Committee, fortunately, has currently had to do no extra work as a result of the pandemic. I mean, the Complaints Committee does not deal with the day-to-day queries where there's been a significant pickup, and we've had to deal with those on multiple fronts. What we're talking about is escalated queries or complaints that could potentially place the entire fund in danger, that might result in court cases, adjudicator cases, etc. It's too early for anything from the pandemic to have arisen at this stage. But I guess it's possible in the future there will be an escalation. Yes, it's something to watch, but for completion I mentioned them as well. In conclusion, I hope I've actually given you a sense today of the vital work that's been done in all the 9 committees to try and help our clients, our members, our participating employers in the light of the many risks that we're facing as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. As I said, this is completely uncharted territory, probably never in history, and certainly never in any of our lives have we faced risks like this. We've had a huge market fall in the first quarter of 2020, maybe a little bit of a recovery a little bit more recently, long may it hold, I don't know. We are seeing many of our clients in financial distress, many of our members in financial distress, many companies closing down. I think the economic fallout for South Africa and the world is going to be massive. I mean, no one knows exactly where that will go right now. But what I've tried to give you a sense is that the Sanlam Umbrella Fund has got a very strong governance structure. We've got good people on all the committees, and we are trying to identify all the key risks and tackle them in a steady fashion for the benefit of our members. We are trying to concentrate on the biggest risks first, and at this stage I'm reasonably comfortable we're doing a good job. There definitely are many risks that are still out there. Administration, staffing, financial distress of employers probably right at the top of the list. Investments and the volatility, another massive risk. Panic among our membership, another one. The issue of what we're doing about insurance, and how do we best protect our members in this difficult time, another one. But I mean, we're doing our best, and yeah, I'm reasonably comfortable where we are right now, but not complacent. I know that there are many risks that lie ahead. I hope that gives some comfort to our stakeholders, and actually maybe my final point, I hope in this time actually we can see there's value in all the different extra governance structures we've put in place in this fund, and those, in my mind, should be taken more into account when clients choose one umbrella fund over another. Thank you very much. Take care of your families, stay safe. These are difficult times, but let's stay home and let's support the government and let's get through this together. Thank you very much.